Okay, you guys ready to get going? Oh, I guess I'm on a mic now and you can hear me. Wasn't ready for that. Okay. All right. Welcome. Can we take the volume down just a hair? In the back, mic. Let's see if that's better. That's a little bit better. Welcome back. We must have had a good meeting last time because you all came back to join us. This is another, I think, really interactive meeting you're going to enjoy. As you can see, there's lots of stuff in front of you to work on. I would say 75% of this meeting is just going to be you guys doing your thing. We're just here to hang out and watch you do it. And that's really what makes, I think, a great facilitator and guide through this process, because it's about you. It's about your community and your plan. So we put a great agenda together for you, which I'll go over here right now. And then I'm going to throw it back to Arthur, because we're going to kick it off with a little fun. A little kind of DJ art, name that tune, get you going today. Pick some songs related to the topic of the meeting. We like to do that because we like to get you guys energized before you roll into this thing. So today, a couple of things we're going to do. First is that we always check in with you on our process. We want to always tell you where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. So you always know exactly where you are in the journey. We will go back and talk a little bit about some existing conditions, a little more. Last time we introduced some information to you, and so we sent to confirm that information back to you about the data. We have some new information to share with you today, and we'll keep doing that as we keep going forward to educate you on some of the things we're learning about Medina today. We'll recap SC1. So what did you tell us? We want to make sure that we present back to you what we heard, so you know we're listening, and you'll see how this is kind of folding into the process, into the development of the plan. And then the remaining time, that 75% of that time, is going to be you guys working at your table. And that work is going to be on the focus areas, and I'll explain to you how we got those developed when we get to that point in the presentation. And then the next, and by the way, you all have different focus areas. So we didn't have you all working on all of them, because that would take too long. So you have different, there was no rhyme or reason to where you sat or to which ones you're working on tonight. And then we're going to talk about the community survey. So we have a very rough draft of that. The beginnings, we want you to look at it, give us your thoughts, tell us what questions you might want added or deleted. We're going to refine that, and then we'll roll that out as part of the engagement, which will be happening after this meeting. So that's everything we're doing in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Any questions for me about the meeting last time or about what we're going to do today? And welcome. And there we are. So, do you have a question? It is rolled out. There's a slide on that, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it's live. So, Arthur, I'm going to throw it back to you.
All right.
Do I need to advance, or are we going to stay right
here?
I
can advance from here.
Okay.
From you. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of fun and do a choose your own jam. So, as Aaron revealed last time at our meeting, I had a past previous life as a wedding club DJ. If you find old videos, don't just ignore them, okay? Just ignore them. So I have 3 songs here, song number 1, song number 2, and song number 3. And I'm going to pick on Gio to select either song number 1, song number 2, or song number 3. And we're just gonna listen to it a little bit here. So which number, Gio, which song number would you like to listen to? Lucky number 3. Okay, so lucky number 3 is, sorry, I got to do some moving and grooving here.
Arthur
Maybe.
picked these related to our topics of the day. So I don't know what song this is going to be. So Arthur, can you explain the tune and your inspiration?
I'll explain all the tunes once it comes up. Sorry. I'll explain all the tunes once they come up. Come on.
This is the awkward moment at the wedding where nothing's working.
Yeah. So song number 3 is Kenny Loggins with Danger Zone that we're going to listen to here a little bit while we go through everything. So the first song was Earth, Wind, and Fire, September. And the reason why we were choosing September is because we're going to do our primary engagement here is going to be in the month of September. Song number 2 was My Town by Michael Stanley Band. I know there was a Michael Stanley fan in the audience the last time we met. So I was thinking about that person in particular, and I was also thinking My Town. We have Southtown, we have Downtown. This is your town, so why not My Town? And then song number 3 here with good old Kenny from Top Gun, Danger Zone. What we're about to do is, I guess, sort of enter the danger zone of diving into this plan and starting to figure out what we want to see, what we would like to have done within the city of Medina, and really talk about the future. So that's the rationale from this afternoon's songs.
Good pick, Gio. So we'll do that next time too. We're gonna try to keep a theme going with every meeting, kick us off with a little bit of fun. That way we don't have to make you guys do a weird, awkward icebreaker every time. So we'll take care of that. Okay, so back to the meeting. I'm gonna jump right into this. And as I said before, we're gonna talk about, choose your jam, or do that. Process update. So again, it's important you know exactly where we're at in this. So we finished phase one, which was investigate, which is really us getting going. Kicked off with the client. We met with you, got the juices flowing, met you, got some initial ideas out on the table. We're in phase two, which is inform. So continue to work on existing conditions, share some of that information with you. We did a great area tour last Friday with Kimberly, and Bill joined us for part of that, and a lot of other people in your community kind of chimed in, whether that was at a restaurant or on the street. Talked to a lot of people, walked around. It was hot. And so some of those pictures you can see in the document there, so we completed that. We're in phase three right now, which is engage the community. So we're moving into steering committee meeting 2. We are started to develop the community survey, which will be going out. We're planning for some pop-up events and a virtual public meeting. And then once that's done, still in phase 3, we'll come back to you at our third meeting together and present all that public information back to you. And that's when things start to get really interesting, because we're really gonna have some themes that are gonna start to drive the development of the plan, which happens in phase 4. And then phase 5 is we finalize it. We'll have a draft plan done. We'll go back to the public in an open house, and we'll hear from them again. We'll present that to you in meeting 5, and then we finalize. So that's where we're at. So this is your website, which is live, medinacomplan2021.wordpress.com. So you might want to jot that down if you want to keep that handy. We'll keep reminding you of that.
And really quick, that the one we were mentioning last time, we were having some technical issues, and it was just WordPress was changing up how they were doing their domains. So the last time it was shown as just medinacomplan2021.com. So that's the change, is that it's medinacomplan2021.wordpress.com. So just to clarify that from last time.
Thanks, Arthur. This is our schedule, really small, and I kind of already covered where we're at in the process, so we don't really need to go into that. So a little bit more on some of the existing conditions. So last time we present some demographic data to you. I will present that back to you again today. And we also presented a lot of data just related contextually to regional and national trends and what's shifting. And we got some good feedback from some of you after that meeting that you really enjoyed that. It gave you some perspective on your city. It gave for some of you actually came up and said that hit home close to me, because some of the decisions my family's making, whether those are senior relatives or young people. And so that was really the platform of where we started. Now moving forward, we're going to continue to look at this base, which is your city boundary, and start to peel back the layers of the onion to see what else we can learn. And one of those is just how land is currently being used. And so this map shows not zoning, but how land is currently used. And this paints a really interesting picture, right? There's a lot of different colors up there. And to us, that says you're pretty diverse. So I'll show you a pie chart here in a second. But a lot of communities are really heavy, right? They're really heavy residential, or they're really heavy commercial. You guys have a really nice balance. In fact, if you really take a closer look at what's going on here, you can see from a land use standpoint all the different ways in which land's currently being used. So 39% residential for comparatively is actually kind of low. It doesn't dominate. It says to us you're not just a bedroom community. That's good because that translates oftentimes into you have a healthy, diverse local economy, which we also know to be true, in part because of how you were set up historically, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then you can see kind of surrounding that the varied other uses, right? So you also really heavy kind of industrial base, really good for generating income tax to the city. A healthy amount of open space, and I'm sure you can connect to that. And I have another map that will kind of speak to the importance of that in your community. So what we see is you have a really nice, diverse, and balanced mix of land use typologies. So sometimes when we're planning for communities, you come in, they're 89% residential, right? And they're trying to figure out how to generate more revenue. They're trying to figure out how to create a sense of place, and they want to keep people in their community. You've done a lot of that. And so what the decision you have to make is, do you want to tweak it? Do you want more of something, less of something? Do you like the balance and tapestry that you have currently? But this is a really good start. You know, you're kind of a whole community. This is zoning, right? So this is different than the land use. So one is how land's being used, the other is zoning. And to a degree that matches the land use patterns, with some zoning classes could be examined to allow for a greater mix of uses and to preserve the historic character of some specific areas. So one of the things that we're always mindful of is that when we finish this project, that some of the decisions you have to make might drive you to go back and change this to become in alignment with the plan. So while they're generally in alignment now, and that's what we're presenting to you, when we're done, these two things may not be in alignment. And one of your directives might be to go back and change some of those zoning designations. In particular, they might be the areas that are on your table. So as we did our walkabout, we started to look at some of these focus areas. Immediately in our brains, these were areas of transition. These were areas where things may need to change. And so we want to reflect on this map and say it matches today, but moving forward it might not. This is a map of connectivity. So these are your, sorry if it's a little difficult to see. Do you know if we can kill the lights a little bit during this portion of the presentation? No? Maybe? Perfect. The man in the back with the switches in the plan. Great. Maybe that helped a little bit. So I'm not expecting you to see this grid or all the street names and all of that. But what I do want to communicate to you, and you know this, you live here, is that you have a cacophony of state routes that converge. There's really only one other place. There's a couple I've seen more. One is in Kenton, Ohio. You have a lot here that creates a lot of challenges. We know about it. We felt it on the walking tour. And those are some of the things you might want to be addressing through the course of this plan. What I'm going to say in very clear and simple terms is moving state routes. For those of you who are in the transportation group or field, looking at you, Shannon, is really difficult. And I've done this for a lot of downtowns, a lot of communities. That's not something we want to get into. So those state routes are here, and they're here for a reason, and they're driving your economy. And that's kind of a good thing. So we want to figure out where they converge, where they're coming from on those routes coming in. What can we do to manage that and actually leverage it, rather than try to continuously talk in a circle like so many communities for so many years. They get stuck on it and say, we just need to move those things. Guess what? They don't move. And if you do move in some cases, like in a Lancaster where you have a bypass, it turns out for some communities that wasn't really a good thing. So, our encouragement is to be mindful of them, to look at those areas of connectivity where they're coming in, and figure out what do we do next, because it's a nice radiating grid pattern, and I really think I know that's driving your robust local economy. And it's creating mobility challenges for non-motorized activity, right? You have connectivity issues. We saw those pinch points, and safety and comfort. So let's figure out how to, as a team, some of that you might talk about here, address that through what we want to do moving forward to improve the condition on those routes. Trees, streetscaping, ways to manage the traffic, things like that, within reason. Parks and trails. So this is a great map of where some of those areas are kind of highlighted there in the green. You have a nice tapestry of those as well. And I'm going to go back. You can see the trails there, right? They're kind of that lime green popping through. You know this. You live here. You have existing trails and pathways that are present, but there's not a clear created system yet. They're not connected. And many of them don't actually connect to the there. And even if you can get to the there, you can't get to the next there. And so, we see a huge opportunity here because you have these destinations. I'll show you another map that shows you where those destinations are. Some of them are actually the parks in the open space. Others are your business district and areas of activity. We want to try to connect those. Increasingly, those are economic development tools. People are moving to places, I said this at the last meeting, because of quality of life, not because that's where the jobs are. And so everybody's competing for the amenities that are making you comfortable, driving quality of life, in turn attracting a workforce. These things matter. They're not just the leftover asphalt we build because we want to ride a bike, 20 miles an hour. They're much more than that. So if we look at park access going from that map to this map, this is a heat map that shows you how close you actually are to accessing a park. More good news, like some of the other slides. The majority of the cities, like less than 5 minutes from a park space, or even 7 minutes. So you can see on that legend there, less than 5 minutes is that dark green and then radiating out to the red. So as you get out towards the west, you start to get some pockets of, kind of these park deserts or open space deserts. Full disclosure, this is Esri GIS data, and so there could be areas in here that didn't exist that the software doesn't pick up. So that always happens. Somebody says, well, hey, there's actually this space over there. This is the data that we have. And so for the majority of the city, it's really incredible. Again, like I talked about the residential, where we see some communities 70, 80, 90% residential, sometimes even more. It's a challenge. We see communities that are extremely deficient in park space. Now, while the map says this, it doesn't mean it's right for you. It doesn't mean that you have enough space. But it is saying that relatively, in the city, there's pretty good access within a 5-minute walk or drive to a park. So that's really awesome. But that also gives us direction to go back and maybe revisit non-motorized connections. Because if you have that much space, how are you getting there? Is it safe to get there? And then how can you move through this system of spaces? So the other thing, again, back to connectivity, are these areas of activity, these activity zones. Again, this is something that our GIS software kind of creates for us. So it finds these pockets of activity, whether that's a park space, an industrial park, the downtown, where there's something happening. So these are areas where we might want to connect to. We also might want to pay attention to them because there's a certain activity there we want to preserve, promote, or even expand. Expand horizontally or expand vertically. So these are kind of those areas of pockets. I'm going to skip over that text there. In terms of retail access, again, like your park map, this heat map shows us that there's pretty good access to retail services. And so that's nice because it means that, at least according to this map data, that you have nice nodes and it's creating this convenient access to shopping and convenient services. By the way, when we use the word convenient services, we don't mean Speedway. We mean things like dry cleaners. We mean things like you need on a daily basis, a pharmacy. That's how that term's coined. So kind of looking back at the map, I don't know, this might be something you want to talk about at your table, if it's really reflective of what's going on here or some of the data that we're receiving. But for us, pretty good within the city. Just a quick look at your industrial zones. That was one of the areas when we talked about land use. That was the second largest category. That's really positive to have this type of industrial area in your community. Generally, for those of you who are as close to this stuff as we are, this is the stuff communities dream of because it's the highest return on the land use typology in terms of jobs created, income that's generated, and often for you guys, police, fire, stuff you don't have to service as much as like retail. So just rule of thumb, usually residential, if it's less than in Ohio, somewhere between 450,000 and 500, they're drains. You're actually servicing them more than you're getting any revenue back. Commercial isn't quite as bad. Typically that's a less drain, especially for big box stuff, not CBDs, not your downtown, the high density, actually really good. And so office, industrial are usually the two typologies that are driving you forward from income generation. So really good that we have this space over here. And so we want to figure out how to create opportunities for commerce in these places, leverage them, enhance them, and also continue to manage the traffic that's supporting them. We also looked at potential development areas. So these are areas that, for other plans that we do, are much more relevant because they're not as built out as Medina. So these areas that are either undeveloped, underdeveloped, but show some potential for future development. These are a little bit different than your focus areas that you're going to have at your table. But what this is saying to us is that we need to be really intentional with these areas because you don't have a lot left to work with. It's also saying to me that as you think forward, that much of what you're going to be doing as a community in terms of effectuating change, enhancing your quality of life, creating more revenue, is going to come from within. And when you come from within, that comes with hard conversations. It comes with the bad D word, which is density. It comes with the bad H word, which is not the one that we use when we're mad. It's height. Because you're going to have to look inward, you might have to look more dense, and you might have to look up. Again, back to your tables, that's some of the work you're going to have to do today. Because you just don't have a ton of space, right? You have these industrial parks that I think there's still some more opportunity for redevelopment in, but we have to be really intentional here. Your Main Street, your downtown, you guys are one of the leaders in the state in terms of what you've done here. Amazing work. So you're like on 15.0. I always talk about downtowns and 1.0, 2.0. You know, you're just kind of maintaining now. You're just right in that last chapter. And as a community, you've done a lot of that too. So the demographic data. So we did come back and clarify the data points that we presented when I was like, Matt, that didn't seem right. I'll revisit that here in a second. But we also have not had a chance to work with the new census data, which just came out. So we're all hustling to get a hold of that and make sense of it. So we're going to continue to present some of that back to you because we're working with it real time like everybody else. Yeah, Shannon.
Go back and start talking about congestion and traffic flow. It seems to me like the city handles it well. Do you think that the economic growth that we're having, the roadway's going to handle what we're doing road-wise? Are you thinking about that with the plan? Or is that not involved in?
Yeah, no. I mean, the honest answer is no, because that would take a pretty significant traffic study to look at current volumes, projected growth in the county. I mean, that's a big digging deep. Yeah.
But it's just, you know, obviously we're trying to get more people where they're going without more roads, cars on the road anymore. The trucks are there, they're coming in now. But I just find it interesting, I just didn't know if that was part of it. I didn't see it yet.
Right. Yeah, we're not doing a kind of a local and more county level traffic study to understand current and projected volumes and level of service on the roads.
That may be something to consider if the county grows. You know, we go to business, people have to get there.
Yep.
That's more cars, that's more traffic, that's.
Yep. And that might be one of your recommendations or action items coming out of this in certain areas, specifically more targeted, as part of this plan. Did you have a question, sir?
No, just the city has done origin and destination studies in the past, and they are very wide. And it probably would benefit the county.
So I'll just repeat that because I know I'm mic'd and not everybody here is. The comment was that the city's done origin and destination studies in the past. It is very useful information, and it might be something we continue to talk about as we go through here. But
That would be a yes and the strategic plan that we're doing to figure out what it's like on a holistic from the county standpoint, coming in and out, and traffic flow. But again, I'm asking for that in our plan, but didn't know
yeah.
they could complement each other or figure out how.
They could complement each other, and just, again, for the folks in the room, that type of traffic study is a big lift. And it's not something we've been scoped to do. But we got to be mindful of that information. We got to be mindful of that moving forward. So the stay tuned was the demographic data is coming. This was the information we presented to you last time. And so this was a combination of a couple of the townships. So it kind of took this micropolitan statistical area around Medina, which was that 60,000 number. And you can see below that, the 27,955 is actually the city of Medina. And then the townships below that gave us that data. And then same thing with the population change, just clarifying that for you. So I wanted to make sure I went back and revisited that. And on the note, it says 2020 census data will be available soon. It is available now. We're just working to work with it. So the other information that I just skipped over was slides from the last time. I just want to keep pace. So a quick recap from our last meeting. We did a couple of things. We did a fun icebreaker about bands, which I remembered some of that, so did Arthur. We also wanted to ask you what type of plan you wanted. And some of the comments that you made were a policy document. You wanted something that was land use that would drive your zoning, which I talked about here earlier. You wanted to have focus. That's the work at the table. But you also wanted to have vision. So some of the sticky notes, a plan that reflects a changing community, focused on repurposing and redeveloping. Again, that importance of growing in. The idea of sustainability being part of what we're working on here. The vision piece, and then forward-looking, reasonable and attainable. So I really like that top right one. We have to dream big, but big enough so something we can reach and do. So you really want a plan that's a long-term vision with strategic recommendations that you can follow regularly and be implemented. And in short, it's really a working policy document to guide change that elevates the overall quality of life, something you want to use on a daily basis. And we heard you, and we're going to work to create that. You also talked about issues and opportunities. So these were some of the issues that you brought up. Again, we took all the sticky notes and we put them into kind of these themes. We talked about the traffic. We knew that was going to be something we would talk about coming into this project. The lack of sidewalks and connectivity. So you mentioned that before we even presented the maps to you. So that came up. Old vacant buildings. We hear you. You're going to work on that today. The importance of housing and housing options, and that might have been a resonance to some of the trend data I presented to you at the last meeting. A lot of discussion around public transit. So Shannon, I'm glad you're in the room again. That being important. And then just these missed redevelopment opportunities. I apologize, that's a little difficult to read. This is just summarizing all of those different issues kind of in this pie chart in this wheel. Traffic being one of the bigger ones, followed by public transportation on the 10% there, housing at 10%, the idea of civic activities and uses, and then kind of moving around the wheel. So traffic, public transportation, housing, and the civic uses being the big ones. On the opportunity side, preserve your historic district, increase the number of small businesses, again, growing inward, being creative, repurposing vacant buildings, affordable housing, of upward construction, and the expansion of public transit. So these are the things that you told us last time. And again, on the wheel, program and activities, these civic comments, future growth at 11%, historic preservation at 9%, small businesses, housing at 7%, trails, and then continuing on. So you're kind of really seeing already from you guys some emerging themes coming out of this information. Again, just more issues these are things that you said. I'm not expecting you to read this, opportunities. I guess the reason I'm flashing all of those up is because we combed through all of those, and the emerging themes were the theme of mobility, the theme of housing, the theme of economic development and stabilization, sustainability, and quality of life. So where we're going and what we're thinking right now is these are actually going to be taking shape of the chapters of the plan, right? We'll make sure it's effective and strategic, but we want to build off of what you already told us was important. Again, just some fun eye candy to see some of the ideas organized under each one of those, which is what we did. And then there's more to come. So a lot of the questions we asked you are baked into the survey. And so that data structure is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger around issues and opportunities and the themes of the plan. So we're going to test some of the things you told us, and they'll be validated through that engagement process. It's almost your turn, I promise. You also did a mapping exercise. We asked you to put some dots on the map. And growth areas in green, the yellow was enhanced areas, red was preserved. And so you started to point those out to us. And there were these concentrations and clusters of these dots. So again, green was grow, yellow was enhance, and red was preserve. And so coming out of that, we started to identify areas of opportunity. and from your map. And there were 4 focus areas that really kind of came out of that work, and then that we also confirmed through our walk audit that we did last week. And it was the East Smith corridor, West Liberty corridor, South Downtown, and the North Court corridor. So these were areas that we identified and felt were important to really dig into and visit as a team here. And that's something you're going to be working on moving forward here at this point, as we're going to translate that over to you. So I want to pause there and ask, based on some of the information I presented, the process, what you did last time, what were this thing we're kind of unfolding in front of you as part of the process and the plan. Any questions for me or Arthur right now? If they're not, they must be really clear slides. Yes?
Will we get a copy of the deck?
The deck will be on the website. So everything we do is going to be on the website as we move forward. Transparency is bliss and part of this process. Okay, so the fun begins. Pretty much the remainder of this time, you're going to be working at your table for the next hour, even more if we need it. The first thing you're going to do, you don't have to do it right this second, but when I turn it over to you, is nominate a table facilitator. By definition, I think you guys know what that means. You're going to have to take notes, and when you're done with your group work, you're going to have to be the spokesperson for your group. So in some form of organized chaos, you can figure out who that person is. Managing group discussion, make sure everybody has a chance to talk, take notes, report out, generally be awesome as the facilitator. That's what we want you to do. So find the awesome person at your table and nominate that person. So as we get into this, we're going to go through each one of these. The first is East Smith corridor. So these are the boundaries that we drew for the corridor. If you think there need to be different, you could talk about that in your group. We started to take some of this character image typology of what's going on in this corridor. So kind of have this mixture of uses over there as you kind of this transect out of downtown. There are some real big areas of opportunity here that you might want to be talking about. You also had this plan done in 2010. These are some of the quotes from that plan recommendations. Don't read that, but if you want to go to the website and read those recommendations later, you can. But there's already been some work that's been done in here. And if you're familiar with that plan, you might want to reflect on it as part of this work. But there are some kind of areas of infill and opportunity that it talked about. I think some of those are still very relevant. But you may not want to go this route, right? Some of it. Some of it's been redeveloped. Oh, yeah, some of it has. But there still are pockets that haven't been redeveloped. You also have the West Liberty corridor. So this is a really interesting area. Again, kind of mixture of uses. A lot of things started to change in this district. Some of your signature businesses are in this corridor, as you know. You have some residential. You have residential transitioning to commercial and kind of that mixed-use district. You have areas for infill in here. You have a streetscape that has a tremendous amount of opportunity. And when we talk about things like housing and we talk about industrial, this is one of those unique areas that I think those two things can start to coexist and create something really cool. But this is an area that you might want to talk a lot about if you have it at your table. Again, not everybody has the same focus areas. So you're going to have to work with the two that you got. So this is the West Liberty. We have North Court. This is much different than the others. This is, power center, classic, big box, needs reinvented. Every community has one of these, by the way. And you're lucky you don't have multiple, like some communities are figuring out to do about 5 of these types of centers all over the community. So this one's a little bit different, much more auto-centric. How do you get there? What's going to be happening there in the future? It's a big site, so the opportunity can be a variety of things. That's up for you to decide what you think it could be. If you want to pick our brain, we could share with you how some other communities have done that. And the last one is South Downtown. This is an area that Main Street you guys have been working on. A lot of dreaming's happening here. We're actually going to meet with Matt, and I think next week or the week after to dig into more of what's been going on there. But we want to hear from you today. rather than take all that work and bring it in, just empty cup. What do you see? What do you like? What opportunities would you like to see grown here? This is a really important district. You have some big parcels here that have big opportunities. And when we think about stuff like this, don't think it in terms of all of these. Well, Sally Jones owns that property and has had that business there for 20 years, so nothing's going to happen. A lot of things happen. Sally Jones decides to sell the business. There could be a fire. There's a lot of things that happen that transition quickly. And so it's okay to think about other people's property. That's what happens when we do comprehensive planning. And so that oftentimes at some point in this process becomes a touch point. But the purpose, the Ohio Revised Code, gives us the authority to do this. And the reason we do it, and I'm kind of picking on this district because there are some really cool, viable things in here. There are also things that if I looked at my crystal ball, I'd say I could see them transitioning in 5 years. Just knowing what's happening in the economy, knowing what I've seen all over the place. And so the reason we do this is so if and when that happens, the city's in a very proactive position to say, we've listened, we understand our values, we have a plan, this is the plan for how we want to see this area develop. And now you're in a proactive position versus not having done that. Sally Jones sells the beauty shop on the corner that everybody wants, and the first thing that comes in is a gas station or a bank. We all need to do commerce and we all need gas, but most communities, when that happens, does not want a gas station or a bank on the corner. But they don't have a plan and they have no leverage. So create your leverage here, right? Whether any of these districts and all parts of this plan, it's okay to dream and for us to put things in a plan that maybe not be exactly what it is today. Does that make sense? Okay. Because I guarantee, I'm not going to pick on anybody in the room, but I bet you that would have happened today at some point. And if it doesn't happen today, it'll happen later in the process, and we'll be ready to have that conversation. It's a hard part of the process, it really is. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to turn off my mic, and you guys are going to work. You're going to nominate your table facilitator. I'm going to leave this slide up here, so table facilitator, you have your directions for the next 30, 40 minutes. The first thing is use your sticky notes and just one word per note, real quick. Describe something that you see in that district or that focus area you have. So, housing, trail connectivity, dog park, whatever the things are that you think embodies that, and just get them on the page. Then as a team, you're going to start to organize them. You're going to look at all the words, and then item 3 up there is you're going to develop kind of a statement that describes what you want the area to become in the future. Okay? That's what you're going to do. And there's a place on there where it says your vision statement. We made it really easy for you. It's like back to school. You've got kids in school, so you're filling out the worksheet. So you're going to write that vision statement down. Then you can kind of move all your sticky notes off. And then the activity for the 4th bullet point is there. There's a lot of work we have to do after we get that vision statement, but flash in the pan. What do you think some of the 5 to 10 strategies are that you need to do to achieve that desired outcome, right? Tear down Building Z, engage Tom Jones because we think he can do the development. Whatever those action steps are, write those down. So you're going to dream, you're going to organize the dream into a statement, and then you're going to start to describe how you're going to achieve that desired outcome. Questions for me on that? You have 2. You all have different 2. There was no rhyme or reason to where you sat or what 2 ended up at your table. But those are the 2 you got to work with, because otherwise we could spend the next 40 minutes talking about who sits where and what they want to work on. We're not doing that, okay? Yeah, the first thing, one word, it's just kind of getting stuff down on the paper, Matt. You have to do both of them, so you're going to have to work through both of those focus areas. It's going to take you 40 minutes, if not more.
Are we restricted to the inside of the red dotted line?
If you want to change the boundary, change the boundary. That's just the starting point, okay? And Arthur and I will float. We'll put some music on. We'll float. Raise your hand if you have questions.
So again, if you guys haven't moved on to your second focus area, make sure you start moving on to your second focus area. Don't worry if you haven't gotten the first one perfect. We want to make sure that we get to both focus areas within the time.
You go tour the city.
5-minute warning. 5-minute warning.
You got out, you parked, you say what you wanted to eat.
5-minute warning, and then we'll do, your facilitator is going to do a report out. So 5 minutes, and then your facilitator is going to do a report out. As Bill is taking photos, make sure you look busy. Look busy. All right, that's going to be our time. So what we're going to ask you all to do, is that your facilitator from your table is going to pick one of the focus areas that you all talked about. So your facilitator is going to pick, man, we knew he was going to be trouble today, right? We knew it. Your facilitator is going to pick one of your focus areas, and then we're going to give you about a minute to talk about what you discussed. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So, facilitator at your table, pick one focus area, 2 minutes. And because I'm zeroing in on Matt and his table, I'm picking your table first. Jacqueline, are you our facilitator?
A little close to it.
So
I don't want to be biased.
Yes, make sure you talk into the mic because we are recording this for the website.
Apparently Chief Kinney's already turned the microphone on. Chief Kinney was really excited to be our facilitator, but he's got a little stage fright. We'll work on that later. Okay, so we had South Downtown, but Southtown, which we kind of had a ringer. So we've got several post-it notes, but our vision statement is create a vibrant arts, parks, and entertainment district that connects to the neighborhoods. Solid? All right, you want to know our...
I'm not going to judge. Judgment-free zone. This is like Planet Fitness.
Oh, see? Chief,
Judgment-free.
you totally could have done this. Would have been fine. You want our strategies of how we're
Please.
getting there?
Yes.
Okay, we need to clean up Champion Creek because we need access to natural resources, pedestrian-friendly development, add multifamily housing with traditional townhomes, combine and coordinate private parking for public access. We'd like to create a DORA for the district, which is a designated outdoor refreshment area that Chief Kinney totally supports. And we need to concentrate on code enforcement for residential properties in the area.
Is it all residential properties or historic residential properties?
All.
All. Okay. Mm-hmm. Boundary makes sense?
Yeah, we think so.
All right. Aaron with a nice cut. Who's our facilitator over here? You go? All right.
steal some things, that's
Rocking and rolling. Fire away, Chief.
Okay, so the one that we're going to talk about is the West Liberty Corridor. And so what we identified in there that are the biggest opportunities at the corner of State and West Liberty is the old Permold building. And in fact, on this map, we've actually extended the boundary to include the large portion of that building. It is a bit of a missed opportunity. It's just storage, and we're really not sure. I should probably find out since I'm the fire chief. But additionally, there are streetscape opportunities there. I think, which street, Washington was it? The that you were pointing out, Kimberly?
Well, just West Liberty in general.
Okay.
I felt like was very disjointed and could use a lot of streetscape because that's anchored by Root Candle, which is, I call the mothership retail store.
Okay.
So,
But in general, this whole area has a lot of opportunities. There is the old Sunoco lot that is vacant at the corner of Prospect and Liberty. The Moose Block could be redeveloped. And we also extended the northern border on North State to include the 200 North State complex that is a huge missed industrial opportunity as it backs up to the tracks there. So grants, some of the strategies, grants, I forget what the fancy term was that she used for the other one, industrial recruitment, things like that to help redevelop those specific areas.
The addition to the north, is that taking us closer to the Foundry Social? Because the Foundry Social is off of State,
Not-
if I'm not.
Not quite that far, no, just.
Not that far. Okay.
Just a couple of addresses
Okay.
north. And they did a little red marker there if
Okay.
you're going to look at this.
North. Okay. Yeah.
versus Medina.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Nice little vault. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Denise, are you talking for? Sure. I just saw the mic. Now you're on.
Okay.
Now you're on.
So we have the North Court corridor, which really is retail big box shopping district. Kmart was one of our big topics of the conversation. Challenges, one is to repurpose Kmart into a camping or an outdoor business to encourage more shoppers. We also felt that there needs to be improvements with the mobility infrastructure for walking and biking within that corridor. And the popular, unpopular, I don't know how to present this or not. This was an idea, probably pie in the sky, but really just tear down Kmart, get rid of it, assess the possibility of rezoning it into R3, which is high-density urban residential, in order to encourage residential. All right, thank you. Yeah, I take complete ownership of that, and I couldn't sell it with this group, but when I added the word assess instead of destroy, we were good to go. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you guys. Last but certainly not least.
All right, we did the East Smith corridor. So our vision statement was to create a high-density mixed housing development with amenities to attract the 30 to 50 age group while improving the visual appeal to drive more into the economy in the surrounding areas. Some of the amenities we talked about in this area would obviously be condos or apartments, and then the amenities to kind of drive some interest would be maybe a dog park, the Dora that you had mentioned, playground, maybe a high-end playground, something more elaborate than what we currently have here, coffee houses and food in that surrounding area. And then our strategies and action steps would be to acquire the property that's vacant there, rezone the property that needs to be rezoned, develop a plan, choose a developer, and get county planning approval. So,
I like.
Yeah.
I like. So I think there's some really great ideas that you all talked about there. Obviously, we're going to kind of take this all in, and as Aaron was talking about before, as we do our engagement and as we do the survey, validate even these ideas and concepts that you have all brought to the table. So I think there's a lot of great stuff there, and a lot of great strategies as well. So for the sake of time, I want to get into the next exercise. Got to make sure we get our dog pictures in there. If you can't tell, Aaron and I are both dog owners. He's multiple dog owners. 4 now? So our next exercise, so talking about the community survey. So individually, we're going to ask you to read the draft survey that's in front of you. That is the, 4-page document that you all should have received. Make notes, make any modifications, additions that you think need to be made. Do that individually. Then as a group, the group at your table, talk about it. So talk about some of the thoughts you had, any of the modifications, things missing, maybe some specific questions that you would like to see or like to be shared. And then your table facilitator, so whomever that was that you had elected as your table facilitator, to take the notes for the table as a whole. And that is going to be the piece that we take back with us.
Yeah, so if you're the facilitator, make sure your form has your name right clearly
Yes.
before you collect that back.
Yeah.
Everybody else can just jot down notes on their phone.
Correct. So the table facilitator page, that's what we're going to take back and work on to help modify. Also in your packets, we had another sheet in there to ask any other specific questions, so you can use that sheet for additional notes if you would like as well. We can have, if there's additional questions to add, the facilitator, you can use that sheet. There was like that space for the 5 questions. Hang on, I'm gonna steal. Did you have yours? That's this sheet? Yes. Yeah, the facilitator, if there's additional questions you want to add, you can use this sheet that you should have in your packet. If not, just steal one from someone, the facilitator. And then the notes for the existing questions, you can write on that draft, on that page.
We'll do one more report out when we're done with this in about 20 minutes. Again, it's not going to be perfect when we're done today, but let's just get as many of your ideas back. We'll refine it, and we'll email it out to you so you can see it one more time before it goes live. It's an iteration, okay? And read first.
All right, everyone, we're going to wrap up. So we're just going to ask your table facilitator once again with the mic, just a couple, 1 or 2 high points, things to add, things to take note. Again, this is a draft of the survey. We're going to take your note, the facilitator notes back with us. We're going to revise the draft, and then we'll still share it out with all of you via email to review and make any last-minute comments before the survey goes live. And we'll talk about the survey launch and the engagement here in the next step. So just a few, 1 or 2 points. Shannon, are you our facilitator for this table?
I'm speaking on behalf.
All right. Shannon, you're up.
Speaking on behalf, Denise, okay. Number 2,
There's no bad table.
Chan-
All good tables.
Chancey said something that was interesting about question number 2. What would you say things here in Medina? We wanted to make that more specific, maybe quality of life or quality, something to be more specific. Things are a little subjective.
Okay.
And then we looked at, we had question 17. Denise said some things about maybe that's the who, who. Maybe we're looking at what type of housing, and maybe that question's in here, but that would be, that addressed to who was going to move in, how would what young professional families, what would it look like? But Denise said, and very good point, would be what types of housing would they need?
Okay, that's good. Lila, are you speaking?
I'm sorry, yes, I will
Okay.
speak.
You have to make sure you turn it on, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So that way they don't yell at me back there.
I'm not sure which one's to pick. So for number 7, we thought that there should be just an other category added to that. Free space for them to write. For number 10, we added parks and open space to that. For question 12, we added turning lanes. And then question 13, we thought that you should make that 2 questions, because if they answer yes, you don't know if they're asking for improved biking trails or walking trails, so
more,
kind of.
yeah.
So I don't know if you want me, all of these, or,
If you have another
Okay.
high point one to bring up for,
I guess for number 16, we thought that it was a little confusing if it should be ranked, 1 to 10, or 1 to 6 or whatever, or is there a scale that they're ranking? So maybe just kind of refine.
yeah,
it.
and with some of these, I failed to note at the beginning, I was telling this table over here, for some of these questions, we'll have some imagery associated with the question, maybe some maps, There'll also be a little explanation bar too, so to your point for, what was it, question 16 you mentioned, of what we're asking. And so it's a little difficult to translate that from the survey form that we use that's interactive to a paper form to share with you. So those elements will be cleaned up for it. So no, but thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, no problem.
Jacqueline, are you?
Yeah, we have several quality edits for you, and we agree with multiple comments that have been made, but one of our additional questions that we actually used our addendum for is we'd like to see something around how important is preserving historic neighborhoods in the city.
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question.
Thanks.
Good
Do we win
question.
candy or anything, or there's no prizes?
Do you have any candy?
The prize will be understanding what happened next.
Clarity.
Number 27.
Clarity, right? Chief?
So we'll just say thanks to table whatever number they are for showing us up there with the whole historic thing. It's kind of already been addressed, but the rating questions with
clear.
the graphics, that might help that, but 9 and 10 seem like those are going to be confusing if you don't add something else in there. And number 16 is the same way.
Yep.
And then in general, across many of the questions, we just thought there are several of those that, depending on who's filling this out, they may have something else other than one of the choices given.
So giving another, or
So
giving
giving them
opportunity.
another, but rather than a way to check other, you give them a line to write what the other
Right.
is.
Yeah, and for a lot of the other ones that we do, or for those options, it's not just checking the other, but actually clarifying, okay, other, but what do you mean by other? So an opportunity to fill in and get that information as well. So, well, yeah.
I'm not looking at it though, Roger. So the only notes I made were the other and adding trades to number 15.
Yeah,
Skilled
no, that's a
trades.
good one to add, yeah. Okay.
And we certainly agree with the historic preservation.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you all very much for that information. So we'll make sure table facilitators who have the summarized notes and the added questions, make sure you hand them over to Aaron or flag Aaron down as he's going to walk around. As we mentioned before, we're going to update the survey draft, and we'll share that with all of you before that survey goes live. So with that, it's kind of a nice transition into our next steps. So as I said before, our game plan is to launch the community survey at the latest September 1st, if not maybe a few days earlier, based on when we receive comments and get everything ready to go. With that launch, we will have a flyer. On this flyer, it's going to talk about how we're beginning the comprehensive plan update. We'll have a QR code that allows folks to use their phone, use the camera on their phone, click it, and get access to the project website. And then we'll also have a QR code for the community survey, so they can actually start taking it right on their phone. We'll share that out with all of you in the steering committee, and we'll ask that you share that out with your family, your friends, businesses. So I'm looking at those of you in here. Post it up on the windows of the businesses, at the Cool Beans, at the Sully's, at AI Root, at what have you, wherever, right? We'll work with Kimberly and the folks at the city to get that message shared out with other media sources within the city to make sure that this message is broadcast far and wide. So that will be for the community survey. I apologize, I was going to have a handout, but I did not. That was on me. The community engagement and pop-up events. So we're going to be doing two different things. First, the pop-up events. I'm going to jump ahead. We are planning to be with the Main Street Board, Main Street Medina Board, at the Farmers Market on September 18th. Now, all these dates are tentative, so just an FYI. On Saturday, September 18th, to have a booth there to interact with the community. We are planning to do kind of a morning kind of office hour session at Cool Beans Cafe on the 21st, September 21st. Purpose of that is as myself and potentially Aaron or other team members will be there to interact with those who are coming into Cool Beans, answer questions, continue to pass out information about the survey, about the project, get the word out there. And then the last kind of pop-up event will be a virtual community meeting that we will do sometime that last week of September. So all of these events will begin to announce, and as you can see at the farmers market, we'll be broadcasting about the Cool Beans Cafe office hours. We'll be announcing about the virtual community meeting. So at each one of these events, we'll be talking about the next event that'll be coming up. That flyer that'll have the community, that'll have the website information, will have the survey information, will also have these dates associated with it too, so we can begin to announce that that's where you'll see us, that's where you can interact with us, ask questions of us, what have you. It'll also be on the project website, all those dates and announcements associated with those pop-up events. The other piece we're going to be doing is we've done this with some of our other projects, especially early on during COVID, is these interactive boards that we're going to kind of post up and kind of have travel around the city. And basically these boards are kind of self-explanatory. It allows individuals to come up, they can interact with it using their phone, they can post information on it, they can kind of give their feedback either through Post-its or writing up on the board. And what we'll do is we'll kind of locate these at several different locations throughout the city. So City Hall, Recreation Center, the library, maybe at the Farmers Exchange for a couple days. We'll work with all of you here on the steering committee. If others have suggestions of where we can kind of post these up, we'll have 3 sets that we'll have, and then we can kind of rotate those 3 sets, have them a few days here, a few days over there, and kind of rotate them through where there's high traffic. Maybe we can bring them at the school, at the high school as well, or some at the junior high. So those are the conversations we'll kind of continue to have. We'll work through Kimberly and others to kind of decide where those are at and how long that we have them up there for. Last but not least is the next time we will come together as a group. It'll be October. It'll be the 21st of October. So we will have a lot of information that we're going to be bringing to you, discussing, going over, digesting together. We will have completed all of that community engagement and pop-up events. The survey will have been closed by then. We'll have completed that. And so we'll be bringing all of that information back to you to talk about what we heard, what we understand, and what the kind of next steps are going to be, what the evolution is going to be with all of this. Any questions? We're going to keep you up to date. Bill wants a group photo. Do you want to do a group photo? We actually should do it. We should do one. So we will keep everybody up to speed with once all of these dates for these events are confirmed via email. Kimberly will send that out. We'll send her the information. She'll send it all out to you. So we will all, as a group, as a steering committee, be on the same page. When we have that survey flyer and everything like that is ready to go, we'll be sending it out to you to share it out, again, with your network and about those events. So we hope at those events that we can see some of you there. Come on by, talk to us, bring your family members with you, bring friends, bring whomever to come interact with us. The virtual community meeting, again, will be in the evening. We'll do it through our Zoom app, and we can even talk about connecting through Facebook Live, through an account. We'll have a couple different options that we can do to really broadcast that. So that is the game plan. Those are the next steps. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns, issues? If you have any issues, you can talk to Aaron. If you have great ideas, you can come talk to me. All right. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.